Christmas Eve had wrapped the city in lights and laughter. Store windows glowed with warm colors. Carols drifted through the cold air, and people hurried past carrying bags full of gifts. It was the kind of night that made the world feel alive, full of promise, family, and joy. But in the corner of a small, nearly empty diner, the joy never arrived. A little girl, no more than 8 years old, sat alone in a booth by the window. Her feet didn't even touch the floor. She wore a thin red jacket slightly too big for her, and held a worn teddy bear close to her chest as if it were the only thing keeping her warm. In front of her sat an untouched glass of water and a napkin she kept folding and unfolding with nervous fingers. Outside, snow began to fall softly. She watched families pass by, parents holding hands with children, couples laughing, friends hugging. Every time the diner door opened, her head lifted slightly. Her eyes filled with hope, and every time, that hope faded. The waitress walked by twice, then a third time, but never stopped. Maybe she assumed the girl's parents were in the restroom. Maybe she just didn't want to ask questions on a busy holiday night. Whatever the reason, the girl remained invisible. The clock on the wall ticked louder with every passing minute. She glanced down at a small gift box on the seat beside her, wrapped in plain paper and taped unevenly. It was clearly something she had wrapped herself. She touched it gently, as if afraid it might disappear. Her lips moved, whispering something no one could hear. Maybe a name, maybe a wish. Christmas music played softly from a radio behind the counter, but to her, it sounded distant, hollow. Outside, people laughed. Inside, she waited. No phone, no parents, no answers. Just a little girl, sitting alone on Christmas Eve, wondering if she had been forgotten. She didn't know it yet, but in just a few moments, the sound of that diner door opening would change her night and her life forever. The clock above the counter clicked to 7:48 p.m. The little girl shifted in her seat, hugging her teddy bear tighter. Her stomach growled softly, loud enough that she pressed her arm against it, embarrassed, even though no one seemed to notice her at all. She hadn't eaten since morning. The glass of water in front of her was still full, untouched, except for the small fingerprints along the rim. She kept looking at the door. Every single time it opened, her heart jumped. A group of coworkers walked in, laughing, brushing snow from their coats. The bell above the door jingled sharp and hopeful. The girl straightened up, eyes wide. Then she saw them. Strangers. Her shoulders sank. She turned back to the window, wiping her eyes quickly with the sleeve of her jacket, as if she didn't want even the glass to see her cry. Outside, a father lifted his daughter into his arms, spinning her in the snow while she laughed uncontrollably. The girl inside watched quietly, her reflection faintly visible in the glass, small, still, and alone. She hadn't always been alone. Earlier that day, she had been promised something. A voice had told her, "Wait right here, I'll come back, I promise." So she waited. At first, she believed it completely. She sat up straight, smiling at anyone who walked past, convinced the next person through the door would be the one she was waiting for. But as minutes turned into hours, belief slowly turned into doubt. What if something happened? What if they forgot? What if she had done something wrong? The questions swirled in her head, growing heavier with every tick of the clock. The waitress finally stopped at the table. Her expression rushed. "Where are your parents, sweetie?" she asked gently but distracted. The girl hesitated. "They're coming back," she whispered. The waitress glanced around, then nodded. "Okay," she said, already stepping away. And just like that, the girl was alone again. She opened the small gift beside her and peeked inside, not to unwrap it, but just to make sure it was still there. It was meant for someone else. She had been so proud of it. She imagined their smile when they opened it. Imagined the hug that would follow. Now, the box felt heavier than before. Her teddy bear slipped from her lap onto the seat. She picked it up quickly, as if it might abandon her too. Her eyes burned, but she refused to cry. She had promised herself she wouldn't. Not on Christmas Eve. Around her, the diner filled with warmth. Laughter echoed. Plates of food passed by. Someone dropped coins into the jukebox, and a cheerful Christmas song began to play. But for her, the night felt cold. She didn't know where she would sleep. She didn't know if anyone was coming. All she knew was that Christmas Eve was almost over. and she was still waiting. Have you ever felt alone on a special day like this? And tell me, which country or city are you watching this story from? The bell above the diner door jingled again. Cold air rushed inside, carrying the smell of snow and winter streets. A few people glanced up, then went back to their conversations. To most of them, it was just another customer stepping in from the cold. But to the little girl by the window, the sound made her heart skip. She lifted her head slowly, hope flickering in her eyes for the 100th time that night. A man walked in, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark coat and simple jeans. His head was shaved, his movements calm and deliberate. There was nothing flashy about him, no bodyguards, no attention, seeking presence. He brushed snow from his jacket and paused for a moment, taking in the room. It was Jason Statham. But no one announced his name, no one rushed toward him. In that diner, he was just another man looking for warmth on a cold Christmas Eve. Jason stepped forward. But before he reached the counter, his eyes landed on the girl sitting alone by the window. Something about the way she sat, too still, too quiet, caught his attention immediately. Adults learned how to hide loneliness. Children didn't. It sat right there on her shoulders, heavy and obvious, in the way she clutched her teddy bear and stared at the door as if willing it to open. Jason's jaw tightened slightly. He knew that look. He had seen it before, not in movies, not on screens, but in real life. In moments when someone expected the world to show up for them, and it didn't. He ordered a coffee at the counter, keeping his voice low. As the waitress turned away, he glanced back at the girl again. She hadn't noticed him yet. Her focus was still fixed on the door, as if she believed that if she looked away, she might miss the moment everything changed. Jason took his cup and chose a seat. Not too close, not too far. Close enough to see her clearly, far enough not to scare her. For a few minutes, he did nothing. He watched as she picked up the small gift beside her, adjusted the crooked tape, then set it back down carefully. He watched her count the snowflakes sliding down the glass with her finger. He watched her smile politely when the waitress passed by. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jason sipped his coffee, his thoughts drifting. He thought about Christmases from his own past, the good ones and the quiet ones. He thought about how easy it was for the world to overlook someone small and silent. And he thought about how a single moment of kindness could change the course of a night, sometimes even a life. The girl's stomach growled again. This time Jason noticed the way she stiffened, embarrassed, as if hoping no one had heard it. That was enough. Jason stood up. He walked slowly toward her table, making sure his steps were visible. He didn't want to startle her. When he stopped a few feet away, he cleared his throat gently. "Hey," he said softly, "mind if I sit here for a minute?" The girl looked up, startled. Her grip tightened around the teddy bear. For a second, she didn't speak. She had been taught to be careful around strangers. Her eyes searched his face, looking for something: danger, kindness, intention. Jason lowered himself slightly so he wasn't towering over her. "It's okay," he said calmly. "I'm not here to bother you. Just thought you might not want to sit alone." She hesitated, then gave a small nod. Jason slid into the opposite seat, keeping his hands in plain sight on the table. He noticed how small she looked across from him, like someone who had been carrying a weight far too heavy for her age. "What's your name?" he asked. She swallowed. "Emily," she whispered. "That's a nice name," Jason said with a faint smile. "I'm Jason." She nodded again, eyes dropping to the table. They sat in silence for a moment. Not an uncomfortable silence, more like the kind that lets someone breathe. Jason glanced at the clock on the wall, then back at her. "You waiting for someone?" he asked gently. Emily nodded. "They said they'd come back." Jason didn't press. He simply nodded, understanding more than he let on. "Well," he said, pushing the menu toward her. "While you're waiting, how about we get you something warm to eat?" Her eyes widened slightly. I don't have money." Jason shook his head. "That's okay, tonight's on me." She hesitated again, torn between hunger and politeness. Then her stomach answered for her. Jason smiled. For the first time that night, Emily smiled back, just a little. "If you were in Jason's place, would you step in to help a child like this, or stay silent and walk away? Tell me what you would do in the comments below." Emily stared down at the menu as if it were written in another language. Her fingers traced the pictures slowly, stopping at the pancakes, then moving to the grilled cheese. Jason noticed the way her eyes lingered, not with greed, but with careful hope, like she was afraid to choose the wrong thing and lose the moment. "Take your time," Jason said gently. "No rush." She nodded, still unsure. "I've never been here before," she admitted quietly. "That's all right," Jason replied. "First times can be the best ones." The waitress approached the table again, surprised to see Jason sitting there. She glanced from him to Emily, then back again. Jason smiled politely. "She'll have the grilled cheese and some hot chocolate," he said. Then he looked at Emily. "That okay?" Emily's eyes widened. She nodded quickly, then stopped herself, worried she might look rude. "Yes, thank you." The waitress wrote it down, her expression softening slightly this time. "Coming right up," she said. When she walked away, Emily wrapped both hands around the edge of the table, as if grounding herself. Jason leaned back slightly, keeping his voice calm and warm. "So," he said, "you said you're waiting for someone." Emily nodded again. "My mom." Jason didn't interrupt. He waited. "She told me to wait here," Emily continued. "She said she just needed to go talk to someone. She promised she'd come back before it got dark." Her voice trembled at the end of the sentence. Jason felt something tighten in his chest, but he didn't show it. "How long ago was that?" Emily looked at the clock. "A long time." The words were simple, but they carried everything. Jason glanced at the window, where snow had begun to fall harder now, blurring the lights outside. "Have you tried calling her?" Emily shook her head. "I don't have a phone. She said the diner would be safe." Jason nodded slowly. "All right, then you did the right thing. You stayed where she told you." Emily looked up at him for the first time, really looking. "I did." "Yes," he said firmly but kindly. "You did exactly what you were supposed to do." Her shoulders relaxed just a little. The hot chocolate arrived first. Steam curled into the air. Emily stared at it like it might disappear if she blinked. Jason pushed it gently toward her. "Careful. It's hot." She wrapped her hands around the mug, sighing softly as the warmth seeped into her fingers. It was the first visible comfort she'd had all night. "Thank you," she said again. Jason smiled. "You're welcome." For a moment, they sat quietly, listening to the hum of the diner and the distant Christmas music playing from the radio. Emily took small sips, her color slowly returning. Jason noticed the small gift beside her. "Is that for Christmas?" he asked. Emily nodded, a shy smile appearing. "It's for my mom. I wrapped it myself." "I can tell," Jason said with a grin. "That's impressive tape work." She giggled, a real laugh this time, and quickly covered her mouth, as if surprised by the sound. The grilled cheese arrived next, golden and warm. Emily stared at it, then at Jason, unsure. "Go on," he said. "It's all yours." She took a bite, then another, faster this time. Jason watched quietly, relief washing over him. After a few minutes, Emily spoke again. "Are you nice?" Jason blinked, caught off guard. "I try to be." She nodded slowly. "Most people don't talk to me when I'm alone." Jason looked around the diner. At the busy tables, the laughter. The people wrapped up in their own worlds. "Sometimes people don't notice what's right in front of them," he said. "That doesn't mean you don't matter." Emily absorbed that, chewing slowly. "Do you think my mom forgot me?" she asked suddenly. Jason paused. This mattered. He leaned forward slightly. "I don't know what happened," he said honestly, "but I do know this. You're not forgotten right now. I'm here, and we're going to make sure you're okay." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She just nodded. Outside, the snow continued to fall inside. Something had shifted. Emily wasn't alone anymore. And Jason knew this night wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. Emily finished the last bite of her grilled cheese and wiped her mouth carefully with a napkin, folding it the same way she had been doing all night. But now, the nervous energy was gone. The tightness in her shoulders had eased. For the first time since Jason walked in, she looked like a child again. Not someone carrying a worry far too big for her age. Jason glanced at his watch, then back at her. Feeling a bit better? She nodded. My hands aren't cold anymore. That's good, he said. Cold hands make everything feel worse. Emily smiled at that, then looked around the diner. It was busier now. Families laughed at nearby tables. Someone started singing along softly to the Christmas song playing on the radio. The world felt warmer than it had an hour ago. Jason noticed her eyes drifting back to the door again. You still hoping? He asked gently. Emily hesitated, then nodded. I think I have to. If I stop hoping, it feels scary. Jason understood. Hope was a fragile thing, especially on nights like this. Well, he said, hoping doesn't mean being alone. It just means waiting. And waiting is easier when someone's with you. Emily looked at him, considering his words. Did you ever wait for someone who didn't come? Jason paused. Yes, he admitted quietly. More than once. That surprised her. What did you do? I learned that sometimes people don't show up the way we expect, he said, but help still finds us, just in different forms. Emily tilted her head. Like you? Jason smiled softly. Something like that. The waitress passed by again, this time stopping on her own. Everything okay over here? She asked. Her tone warmer than before. Yes, Jason replied. Thank you. She smiled at Emily. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Emily smiled back. Merry Christmas. As the waitress walked away, Jason reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. He slid it toward Emily. What's this? She asked. Just something I carry around, he said. Open it. Emily unfolded it carefully. Inside was a simple note. Handwritten. Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. She stared at it, reading it twice. Did you write this? She asked. Jason nodded. A long time ago. She folded it neatly and placed it inside her jacket pocket, right next to her heart. I like it, she said. I'm going to keep it. Jason leaned back, satisfied. The door opened again, letting in another gust of cold air. Emily flinched, then relaxed when it wasn't who she was waiting for. Jason watched her closely. He knew this moment mattered. He knew this wasn't just about food or warmth. It was about making sure this night didn't leave a scar she'd carry forever. Emily, he said gently, I want to make sure you're safe tonight. She nodded. Okay. Do you remember any phone number? A family member. A friend. She thought hard. My aunt's number, I think. Jason slid his phone across the table. Take your time. Emily dialed slowly, carefully. The phone rang once, twice. No answer, her face fell. Jason didn't let panic show. That's all right, he said calmly. He looked around the diner. A few people had started paying attention now. Not because of who Jason was, but because of what he was doing. A couple at the next table exchanged glances. An older man nodded quietly, approving. Jason stood up. How about this, he said. Since it's Christmas Eve, let's do something special. Emily's eyes lit up. Like what? Jason waved the waitress over again. Could we get one of those small Christmas desserts? He asked. Of course, she said immediately. When it arrived, Emily stared at the decorated plate like it was magic. She laughed. A light, genuine laugh that made a few people nearby smile. Make a wish, Jason said. She closed her eyes. Her lips moved silently. What did you wish for? He asked. She shook her head. You're not supposed to say. Jason chuckled. Fair enough. Around them, the diner felt different now, softer. Kinder. Strangers were smiling at Emily as they passed. Someone whispered, That's sweet. Emily looked around, then back at Jason. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Jason met her gaze. Because no one should be alone on Christmas Eve. She nodded slowly, as if storing those words away forever. Outside, the snow continued to fall. But inside, something close to a miracle was unfolding. Emily had just finished her dessert when the quiet shift in the room became noticeable. At first, it was subtle. A pause in a conversation here. A second glance there. Someone near the counter leaned forward slightly, squinting. A man at the booth behind Jason whispered something to his wife. Phones, which had been resting face down on tables, were slowly turned over. Jason felt it before he saw it. He'd lived long enough in the public eye to recognize that change in energy, the moment curiosity turns into recognition. He kept his focus on Emily, though, not wanting to distract her or make the moment about anything other than her. But then Emily noticed it too. "Why is everyone looking at you?" she whispered, glancing around. Jason followed her gaze briefly, then smiled calmly. "Sometimes people think they recognize someone," he said. "It doesn't mean much." Across the diner, a young man stood up slowly, his eyes wide. He whispered, not quite quietly enough, That's Jason Statham." The name moved through the room like a ripple in water. Jason Statham. A few gasps followed. Someone covered their mouth. Another person lifted their phone higher, camera now clearly recording. The waitress froze mid-step, staring in disbelief. Emily's eyes widened. She looked from Jason to the people, then back to him. "Jason Statham?" she repeated softly. "Like, the movie guy?" Jason sighed gently, not annoyed, just resigned, and nodded. "Yeah," he admitted. "That one." Her mouth fell open. "You're famous," she said, almost accusingly. Jason chuckled. "A little, but that's not the important part." The diner buzzed now, but it wasn't chaos. It was awe, mixed with something deeper, respect. Not because he was famous, but because they had all just watched him treat a lonely little girl with patience, kindness, and dignity. One man approached cautiously. "Mr. Statham," he said, nervous. "I just wanted to say, that was really decent of you." Jason nodded. "Thanks." Another voice called out, "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas," Jason replied. Emily tugged gently on his sleeve. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to think I was helping you because of who I am," Jason said quietly. "I wanted you to know I was helping because you matter." Her eyes filled with tears. This time she didn't hide them. "Oh," she whispered. A second waitress approached, her voice trembling. "Sir, do you need anything?" Jason shook his head. "No, thank you. But she might need some help tonight." The room grew quiet again. Jason turned fully toward Emily. "Listen to me," he said gently, but firmly. "Being famous doesn't make someone better than anyone else. It just makes them more visible." Emily nodded, wiping her cheeks. "I think I like you better just as Jason." He smiled. "Me too." At that moment, a uniformed security officer from the nearby mall stepped inside the diner, drawn by the attention. Jason calmly explained the situation. A child waiting alone, unable to reach family. The officer knelt down to Emily's level. "We're just going to make sure you're safe, okay?" Emily looked at Jason. He nodded reassuringly. "That's okay," she said. As the officer made a call, the diner watched in silence. No one filmed now. No one spoke. It felt like everyone understood they were witnessing something human, something sacred. Emily leaned closer to Jason. "Are you still going to stay with me?" Jason answered without hesitation. "Until I know you're safe." Her shoulders relaxed. "If you saw a famous person do something like this, not for attention but from the heart, would it change how you see them? And what would you do if you saw a child alone like Emily? Tell me in the comments below." Minutes later, the officer nodded. "We've reached her aunt. She's on her way." Emily exhaled deeply, like she'd been holding her breath all night. Jason smiled. "See, help finds us." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the small note he had given her earlier. She unfolded it, reading the words again. "Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything." She looked up at him. "You were right." Jason glanced around the diner, at the people watching quietly, at the phones now lowered, at the warmth that filled the room. "So were you," he said. "You stayed. You trusted. That takes strength." Outside, the snow began to slow. Inside, something far more powerful than fame had just been revealed. The quiet strength of simple human kindness. Emily's aunt arrived just as the last few flakes of snow fell softly outside. She rushed forward, wrapping Emily in a tight embrace, relief written across her face. Emily clung to her. But for a brief moment, she looked over her shoulder at Jason. He smiled softly and gave her a small nod. No words were needed. The message had already been sent. This Christmas Eve, she had learned something she would never forget, that even in the loneliest moments, kindness could appear in the most unexpected places. The diner had returned to its normal rhythm. Families laughed, servers moved between tables, and the radio played carols in the background. But something had shifted. The patrons and staff carried with them the quiet realization that generosity and compassion were not bound by wealth, fame, or status. Sometimes a single act could change the entire course of a person's night, or even their life. Outside, people still walked by, oblivious to the miracle that had just unfolded inside. But inside the hearts of a little girl, a famous actor, and everyone who had witnessed it, Christmas had already begun. Jason watched Emily safely leave with her aunt, her small hand disappearing into the warmth of her family's coat. He took a moment, letting the night sink in. He hadn't sought recognition, and none came, at least not in the way the world usually understood it. The reward was far greater than fame. It was seeing hope restored, watching courage bloom in a child's eyes, knowing that tonight she would never forget that she mattered. As he stepped out into the cold night air, Jason felt the quiet weight of satisfaction. The streets were still sparkling with lights and the distant hum of festive music, but it was different now. He understood that the most meaningful moments weren't always in the spotlight. Sometimes they were in the small, quiet acts of care that left invisible marks on people's hearts. The story didn't end in that diner. It traveled. One of the patrons had quietly recorded snippets of the moment. Jason sitting with a little girl, offering comfort, sharing warmth, giving hope. By morning, the clip spread online, hearts opening across the world. Millions watched, shared, and commented, inspired by a simple lesson that compassion is universal, and anyone can be a hero when they choose to act from the heart. Comments flooded in. This gave me chills. The world needs more people like him. It's amazing how one small act can change everything. I'm crying. This is what Christmas is truly about. But Jason never sought credit. Fame had nothing to do with it. The lesson was far bigger. The power of presence, the courage to notice someone in need, and the strength to act even when it's inconvenient or unnoticed. That night, Emily learned she wasn't invisible. That night, Jason reminded the world that true heroism doesn't always punch or fight. Sometimes it simply listens, shares, and cares. Emily clutched her small gift tightly, whispered a prayer of thanks, and smiled in the glow of Christmas lights. Somewhere in her heart, she knew she would carry Jason's kindness with her forever. A reminder that even when the world seems cold and lonely, hope can arrive in unexpected ways. If this story touched your heart, type Merry Christmas in the comments and share it with someone who needs to believe in the power of kindness. And remember, sometimes the smallest acts can leave the biggest impact. The snow continued to fall quietly outside, but inside, hope, warmth, and the spirit of Christmas glowed brighter than any light on the street.